Hello all you infidels, kuffar and Muslims, this is part 2, refuting ex-Christian 2716 on his amazing Islamic inventions. So we shall carry on, shall we? Here we go. My response to him, I noticed that you didn't try to refute the claim about Muslims inventing the carpet, so let me enlighten you again. Carpets were probably first made by nomadic peoples to cover the earthen floor in their tents. It is not certain, however, if the Egyptians, the Chinese, or even the Mayas first invented carpet making. It is quite possible that many peoples, none of whom were in contact with each other, began to make carpets at about the same time. Very plausible. We can be certain, however, that by the 5th century BC, carpet making had reached a high artistic level. This was proven by the Russian archaeologist Rudenko and Grizanov, who in 1949 discovered the oldest known knotted carpet in the Pazraik Valley, about 5,000 feet up on the Altai Mountains in Siberia. The Pazraik carpet is of rare beauty and woven with great technical skill. It was found preserved in the frozen tombs of Scythian chiefs, which were 2,400 to 2,500 years old, which obviously predates Islam. Good point, I think. So anyway, carrying on. So going back to the quotation of your video that clearly states that the Muslims brought about the science of carpets, it's nothing but fallacy, I'm afraid. Muslims did not invent the carpet, neither did the carpet originate from Muslims. Again, this is a well-documented fact, substantiated by archaeology. Archaeology. Yes, that's right. Anyway, his response to that is that carpet making was introduced to Spain in the 10th century by the Moors. The Crusades brought Turkish carpets to all of Europe, where they were primarily hung on walls or used on tables. Only with the opening of trade routes in the 17th century were significant numbers of Persian rugs introduced into Western Europe. Muslims invented carpets and transformed them as we know them today. So he's saying that Muslims invent carpets. Rubbish. Provable beyond doubt. Please stop dabbling in such lies. Right, I'll go on. So now with regards to algebra originating from Muslims is again nothing but fallacy, I'm afraid. I can say that Al-Khuzami wrote numerous books that played important roles in arithmetic and algebra. This can't be questioned. However, you need to understand that Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khuzami was a scholar at the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, which was established by Al-Mamun. During his time there, Al-Khuzami, together with his noted colleagues, the Banu Musa, directed and engaged in intellectual interests ranging from algebra and geometry to astronomy and the translation of Greek scientific manuscripts. Al-Khuzami's work, De Numero Inderum, concerning the Hindu art of reckoning, was based presumably on an Arabic translation of Brahmagupta, where he gave a full account of the Hindu numerals, which was the first to expound the system with its digits 0, 1, 2, 3 through to 9, and decimal place value, which was a fairly recent arrival from India. Because of this book, with the Latin translations, made a false inquiry that our system of numeration is Arabic in origin. The Arabs loved good clear arguments from beginning to end, as well as systematic organisations, which Diophantus of the Hindus excelled. I'm afraid algebra existed prior to Islam, which again rubbishes the argument that Muslims invented algebra. There is plenty more evidence to support my claim that algebra existed prior to the advent of Islam, therefore rendering the claim of algebra being a Muslim invention as fallacious at best. Again, it's easily substantiated, provable beyond doubt. So let's move on. Now let us examine the claim that Muslims brought about the science of astrology. So, if you see, we look at the timeline of astrology, we can clearly see the science of astrology predates Islam, rendering your video's claims as being fallacious, I'm afraid. Egypt and Mesopotamia, for example, document in 4242 BC the earliest recorded date in history. The Egyptian calendar is regulated by sun and moon, and has 360 days with 12 months of 30 days. In 4000 BC, astrology begins in Mesopotamia. Sumerians built ziggurats, the first astrological observatories. The sun, moon and 5 visible planets are used. Astrological knowledge is recorded in cuneiform on clay tablets. According to Jewish sources, the first day of the Jewish calendar is recorded in the year 3761 BC. Do I need to produce proof that cultures and civilizations such as the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, who all predate Islam, were aware of the science behind astrology? Please, anyone with an ounce of intellectual integrity will confirm my claims. Yet you claim that I'm the one who's ignorant. That's a little strange. Peace. So, he goes on to say, the translation of Greek manuscripts had nothing to do with algebra, but mostly philosophy. Al-Khuzami's work, De Numero Indurum, concerning the Hindu art of reckoning, is about arithmetic. We are talking about algebra here. Now, I thought algebra and arithmetic were one of the same. It's all maths. But, hey, never mind, we got this distinction to talk about now. Khuzami is considered the father of algebra. Again, I'm not going to deny that because there is plenty of reference to him. The first organised text on algebra came out of the Muslim world. Muslims invented modern algebra. Fact. So it's now saying modern algebra. So how can you invent algebra if it's a modern thing? But hey, or if it's a modern type of algebra, it means that algebra actually existed prior. So yeah, semantics and bullshit. Right, the first semantic distinction between astrology and astronomy was given in the 11th century to by the Persian astronomer Abu Rayyan al-Biruni. Muslims made astrology an organised field. Fact. Right, so now I'm going to have to pick up his points. Right, he says that Greek manuscripts had nothing to do with algebra, but mostly philosophy. I ask him now to please expand on his comments to prove his point, otherwise it's just a generalisation, according to his opinion. Also, as I've said before, Al-Khuzami's work has a profound influence on algebra. However, you can't invent something that already existed. This is a ridiculous assertion. Al-Khuzami merely expanded on algebraic knowledge that existed prior to the advent of Islam. Fact. Therefore, Muslims did not invent algebra. Fact. Right, are you saying that Muslims organised the pseudo-science or superstition of astrology? Even when many parts of the ancient world, such as Egypt, Greece, Babylonia, India, etc., already had places of learning in this field. Again, your reasoning falls well short of the truth, I'm afraid. Muslims did not invent either astrology or astronomy. Fact. Peace. So, we'll carry on. Last one, folks. His friend here, Jabarajang or whatever, Jabadrang 29. Right, okay. If you don't want Islam to take any credit for algebra, astrology or astronomy, etc., so be it. But then he gives me the works of De Lacy, O'Leary and Thomas Carlyle, John Draper, which is fine, haven't got a problem with that. And all the above mentioned are non-Muslims, but all of the above are some of the greatest historians, thinkers and even playwrights of modern times. If you don't believe it from a Muslim, then you might believe it from a non-Muslim maybe. Well, I believe scientific, archaeological, substantiated facts, and if they predate Islam, Islam cannot claim to have invented those things. End of. So, right, I can and do recognise that Muslims had a golden age, and that it was responsible for the translation of much ancient knowledge that reached Europe, causing Europe's Reformation. However, when Muslims claim that they invented things that predate Islam, and such things are irrefutably proven with ancient literature, archaeology and the sciences, this renders them in a position of preaching corrupt misinformation. Unfortunately, this places Muslims in a position of intellectual fallacy and religious bigotry, all in the cause of spreading Islam through lies. Again, almost running out of time. I'm going to cut this short now for the very final part, which will only be a couple of minutes more of your time. So look forward to seeing you then. Goodbye.